title of mine addressed it. If you find this world bad, you need to see some of the others. The subject of this speech is a topic which had been discovered recently and which may not have existed at all. I may be talking about something that does not exist. Therefore, I'm free to say everything or nothing. I can hardly make it error if there is no such thing as orthogonal time, orthogonal or right-angled time, as the topic of my speech. We are accustomed to supposing that all change takes place along the linear time axis, perhaps the present future. The present is an accrual of the past and is different from it. The future will accrue from the present already and be different yet. That an orthogonal or right-angled time axis could exist, a lateral domain in which change takes place, processes occur sideways in reality, so to speak. This is almost impossible to imagine. How will we perceive such lateral change? What will we experience? What clues, if we are trying to test out this bizarre theory, should we be on the alert for? In other words, how can change take place outside of linear time at all, in any sense, to any degree? Let me present you with the metaphor. Let us say that there exists this very rich patron of the art. Every day on the wall of his living room above his fireplace, the servants hang a new picture, each day a different masterpiece, day after day, month after month, each day he uses what is removed and replaced by a different and new one. I shall call this process change along the linear axis. But now let us suppose instead of temporarily running out of new replacement pictures, what shall they do in the meantime? They can't just leave the present one hanging when their employer has decreed that perpetual replacement, that is to say, changing the pictures, is to take place. So they neither allow the current one to remain, nor do they replace it with a new one. Instead, they do a very clever thing. When their employer is not looking, the servants cunningly alter the picture already on the wall. They paint our tree here. They paint in a little girl there. They add this. They obliterate that. They make the same painting different and, in a sense, new. But as I'm sure you can see, not new in the sense of replacing. The employer enters his living room after dinner, seats himself facing with fireplace, and contemplate what should be, according to his expectations, a new picture. What does he see? It certainly isn't what he saw previously, but also it isn't somehow. And here we must become very sympathetic with this perhaps somewhat stupid man, because we can virtually see his brain circuits striving to understand. His brain circuits are saying, yes, it is a new picture. It is not the same one as yesterday. But also it is the same one, I think. I feel on a very deep intuitive basis, I feel that somehow I've seen it before. I seem to remember a tree, though, and there is no tree. Now, perhaps if we extrapolate from this sense perceptual, mentational confusion to the theoretical point I was making about lateral change, you can get a better idea of what I mean. I mean, perhaps you can, to a great degree, see that although what I'm talking about may not exist, my concept may be fictional, it could exist. It is not intellectually self-contradictory. Contemplating this possibility of a lateral arrangement of work, a plurality of overlapping curves belong with linking acts that the person can somehow move, can travel at a mysterious way from worst to fair to good to excellent. Contemplating this in theological terms, or actually could say that herewith we suddenly decipher the elliptical utterances which Christ expressed regarding the kingdom of God, specifically where it is located. He seems to have given contradictories and puzzling answers. But just suppose for an instant, the cause of the perplexity lay not in any desire on his part to baffle or to hide, but in the inadequacy of the question. My kingdom is not of this world, he has reported to himself. The kingdom is within you, or possibly it is among you. I put before you now the notion which I personally find excited, that he may have had in mind that which I speak of as the lateral axis of overlapping realms, which contain among us the spectrum of aspects ranging from the unthinkably malignant to the beautiful. And Christ was saying over and over again that there really are many subjective realms somehow related and somehow bridgeable by living, not dead men, and that the most wondrous of these worlds was a just kingdom in which either he himself or God himself or both would rule. And he did not merely speak of a variety of ways of subjectively viewing one word. The kingdom was and is the actual different place at the opposite end of continuum, starting with slavery and utter pain. It was his mission to teach his disciples the secret of crossing along this orthogonal path. He did not merely report what lay there, he taught the method of getting there. But tragically, the secret was lost. The enemy of the Roman authority crushed it, and so we do not have it. But perhaps we can re-find it, since we know that such a secret exists. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that this issue has been a fundamental one and an unresolved one throughout the history of Christianity. Christ and St. Paul both seem to say emphatically that an actual breaking through into time, that is specific to what they said, a breaking through into time, into our world, by the host of God that will unexpectedly occur. Thereupon, after some exciting drama, a 1,000-year paradise, the rightful kingdom will be established, at least for those who have done their homework and the chores and generally pay attention, have not gone to sleep, as one parable puts. We are enjoined repeatedly in the New Testament to be vigilant, that for the Christian it is always day. There is always light by which he can see this event when it comes. See this event. Does that imply that many persons who are somehow asleep or blind or not vigilant, they will not see it even though it occurs? Consider the significance which can be assigned to these notions. The kingdom will come here unexpected. This is always stressed. The rightful faithful shall see it, because for them it is always daytime. But for the other, what seems expressed here is the paradoxical but enthralling thought that, and hear this in ponder, the kingdom were established here would not be visible to those outside. I offer the idea that in more modern terms, what is meant that some of us will travel laterally to that better world, and some will not. They will remain stuck along the lateral axis, which means that for them the kingdom did not come, not in their alternative world. And yet, meantime, it did come in ours. So it comes, and yet it does not come. Amazing. If you've followed my conjectures about the overlapping of the ultimate work ethic, and you sense as I do the possibility that if there are 3 or 4 or 2, there may be 30 or 3,000 of them, and that some of us live in this one, others of us in another one, others in other, and that event on black track found be perceived by persons not in that track. Well, let me say what I want to say and be done with it. I think I once experienced a track in which the Savior returned, but I experienced it just briefly. I'm not there now. I'm not sure I ever was. Certainly I may never be again. I grieve for that loss and loss of it. Somehow it moved laterally, but then fell back, and then it was gone. A vanished mountain and the stream, the sound of bells, and all gone now for me, entirely gone. I, in my stories and novels, often write about counterfeit work, semi-real world, as well as deranged private world, inhabited often by just one person, while meantime the other characters either remain in their own worlds throughout, or are somehow drawn into one of the peculiar ones. This theme occurs in the corpus of my 27 years of writing. At no time did I have a theoretical or conscious explanation for my preoccupation with these pluriform pseudo-words, but now I think I understand. What I was sensing was the manifold but partially actualized reality, lying tangent to what evidently is the most actualized one, the one which the majority of us, by consensus gentium, agree on. Although originally I presumed that the differences between these worlds was caused entirely by the subjectivity of the various human viewpoints, it did not take me long to open the question as to whether it might not be more than that. that in fact plural realities did exist, superimposed onto one another like so many film transferences. What I still do not grasp is how one reality out of the many becomes actualized in constant distinctive to the other. Perhaps none does, or perhaps again it hangs on an agreedness in viewpoint by a sufficiency of people. More likely the matrix world, the one with the true core of being, is determined by the program. He or it articulates, prints out, so to speak, the matrix choice and fuses it with actual substance. The core or essence of reality, that which receives or attains it, and to what degree, that is within the purview of the program. This selection and reselection is part of general creativity, of world building, which seems to be it or his task. A problem, perhaps, which he or it is running, of which to say, in the process of solving as a computer. This problem solving by means of reprogramming variables along the linear time axis of our universe, thereby generating breaks off lateral world. I have the impression that the metaphor of the chessboard is especially useful in evaluating how it can be done. In fact, must be. Across from the programmer-reprogrammer sits the counter entity, whom Joseph Campbell calls the dark counterplay. God, the programmer-reprogrammer, does not make his moves of improvement against the inert matter. He is dealing with becoming a form. Let us say that on the game board, our universe is space-time. The dark counter player makes the move. He sets up a reality situation. He, the dark player, the outcome of his desires constitutes what he experiences evil. Non-growth, the power of the lie, death and the decay of forms, the prison of immutable cause and effect. But the programmer-reprogrammer has already laid down his response. It has already happened, these moves on his part. The predel, which we undergo as historic events, happens through stages of a dynamical interaction, thesis and antithesis, as the forces of the two players mingle. Evidently, some syntheses fall to the dark counter players, and yet they do not, by virtue of the fact that in advance, our great advocate, selective variable, the alternation of which brings final victory to him. In winning each sequence in turn, he claims some of us, we who participate in the sequence. This is why instinctively people pray, Libera me Domini, which decodes could be extricating programming, as you achieve one victory after another. Include me in that triumph. Move me along the lateral axis so that I am not left out. Being left out means nothing other than remains under the jurisdiction of or falling prey to the malignant power. But that malignant power for all its diet has already lost, even as it wins. For in some way the counter player is blind, and so the programmer-reprogrammer possesses an advantage. I submit to you that such alteration, the creation or selection of such so-called alternative present, is continually taking place. The very fact that we can conceptually deal with this notion, that is entertained as an idea, is the first step in discerning some processing of itself. But I doubt if we will ever be able in needing real facts to demonstrate, to scientifically prove that such lateral change processes do occur. Probably all we would have to go on would be vestiges of memory, fleeting impression, dream, nebulous intuition that somehow thinks of it different in some way. And not long ago, but now, we might reflectively reach for a light switch in the bathroom, only to discover that what all we had been is another place entirely. We might reach for the air vent in our car where there was no air vent, a reflex left over from a previous present, still active at a subcortical level. We might dream the people at place we had never seen as vividly as if we had seen them and actually known, but we would not know what to make of this, assuming we took time to ponder it all. One very pronounced impression would probably occur to us. to many of us, beginning to deal, and always without explanation, the acute, absolute sensation that we had done once before, what we were just about to do now, that we, so to speak, lived in a particular moment or situation previously. But in what sense could it be called previously, since only the present, not the past, was evidently involved? We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the prayer, deja vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same word, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: about an impression is a clue that at its past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of it, an alternative world branched off, became actualized instead of the prior one. That in fact, in literal fact, we are once more living this particular segment of linear time. A reaching, a tinkering, a change had been made, but not in our present, had been made in our past. Evidently, but that alteration would have a peculiar effect on those first involved. They would, so to speak, be moved back one square or several squares on the board game, which constitutes our reality. Conceivably, this could happen any number of times, affecting any number of people, as alternative variables were reprogrammed. We would have to live out each reprogramming along with subsequent linear time acts, but to the programmer, whom we call God, to him the results of the programming would be apparent at once. We are within time, and he is not. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed, and some alteration in our reality occurs. This, too, might account for the sensation people get of having lived past lives. They may well have, but not in the past. Previous lives, rather, in the present. In perhaps an unending repeated and repeated present, like a great clock dial in which a braided clock hands sweep out the same circumference forever, with all of us carried along my line with, yet dimly suspecting. This the resolution of every encounter of thesis and antithesis between the dark counterplayer and the divine programmer. A new synthesis is struck off. And since it is possible that each time this happens, a lateral world may be generated, and since I conceive that each synthesis or resolution is to some degree a victory by the programmer, each struck-off world, if sequence, must be an improvement upon not just the prior work, but an improvement upon all the late or nearly possible outcomes. It is a better world, but in no sense perfect, which is to say final. It is merely a crude state within a process. What I envisioned clearly is that the programmer is perpetually using the antecedent universe as a gigantic stockpipe for each new sentence. The antecedent universe that possesses the aspect of chaos, or anomie, in relation to a diverging new cosmos. Therefore, the endless process of sequential drop-off ultimate work, emerging and being infused with actualization, is native tropic in some way there cannot be. What we need at this point is to locate, to break forth as evidence, someone who has managed somehow, it doesn't matter how, to retain memories of a never present, late ultimate world of breaking, different in some significant way from this, the one which is at this stage actualized. According to my theoretical belief, it would almost certainly be memories of a worse world than this. For it is not reasonable that God the programmer and reprogrammer would substitute a worse world in terms of creative or beauty or love or order or helpiness by any standard which we know. A mechanic works on his out-functioning part, he is not designated further. When a writer creates the second draft of a novel and is not debate with further, but strives to improve it. I suppose it could be argued in a strictly theoretical way that God might be evil or insane, and would in fact substitute a worse world for a better one. But frankly, I cannot take that idea seriously. Let us pass that over. So let us ask, does any one of us remember in any dim fashion a worse verse circa 1977 and then, have our young men see visions and our old men dream dreams. Nightmare dreams specifically about a world of enslavement and evil, of prisons and jailers, and ubiquitous police. I have. I wrote out these dreams in novel after novel, story after story, to name two in which this prior ugly present obtained most clearly. I cite The Man in the High Castle and my 1974 novel about the U.S. as a police state called For My Fear of the Belief That's Dead. I'm going to be very candid with I wrote both novels based on fragmentary residual memories of such a horrid place they were, or perhaps the current world is the wrong one, and I should say United States, since in both novels I would write about my own country. I could even tell you what caused me to move it. In late February of 1974, I was given sodium pentothal for the extraction of a passive illicit tea. Later that day, back home again, but still deeply under the influence of the sodium pentothal, I had a short or acute flash of recovered memory. In one instant, I caught it all, but immediately rejected it. Rejecting it, however, with the realization that what I had retrieved in the way of varied memory was authentic. Then, in mid-March, a month later, the total body of memory detached and entire began to return. You were free to believe me or to disbelieve, but please take my word on it that I am not joking. This is very serious, a matter of report. I'm sure that at the very least you will agree that for me even to claim it is in itself the main. People claim to remember past lives. I claim to remember a very different present life. I know of no one who has ever made this claim before, but I rather suspect that my experience is not unique. What perhaps is unique is the fact that I am willing to talk about it. If you have followed me this far, I would like you to be kind enough to go a little further with me. I would like to share with you something I do that is retrieved along with the blocked out memory. In March of 1974, the reprogrammed variable tinkered with back at some earlier date, probably in the late 40s. In March of 1974, the payoff, the result of at least one and possibly more of the reprogrammed variables lying along the linear timeline of our past sped into. What happened between March and August of 1974 was the result of at least one reprogrammed variable laid down perhaps 30 years before, setting into motion a dread of change which culminated into what I am sure you will admit was a spectacularly important and unique historical event, the forced removal from office of the President of the United States, Richard Nixon, as well as all those associated with it. In the alternative world which I remember, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movements of the 60s had failed, and evidently, in the mid-70s, Nixon was not removed from power. That which supposed it, if anything indeed existed that it did oppose him or could oppose him, was inadequate. Therefore, one or more factors tended toward that destruction of the entrenched tyrannical power had retroactively to us come to be introduced. The scale, 30 years later, in 1977, were tipped. It was regarded as subversive and revolutionary, and let me add that the appraisal by the police authorities was correct. It took me almost 2 weeks after the return of my memories of my life in Track A to rid myself of the overpowering impression that all references to Christ, all sacerdotal acts, had to be veiled in absolute secrecy. But historically, this fits the pattern of a fascist takeover, especially those along Nazi lines. I also would like to tell you that if you have followed me this far, to accept my statements about mine other under the sodium pentothal which returned. That world was a prison. It was dreadful. We overthrew it, just as we overthrew the Nixon tyranny. But it was far more cruel, incredibly so, and there was a great battle and loss of what? Count of 10. It was in February of 1974 that my blocked out memories of Track A returned, and it was in February of 1974 that my novel, All My Tears of Policemen Said, were released finally, after 2 years in mud. It was almost as if the release of the novel, which had been delayed so long, meant that in a certain sense it was all right for me to remember. That is, to remember that the book was not fictive. The book was based on supplemental memories which I had of such a world. But perhaps until the book was actually released, it was better that I did not remember. Why it had to be, I do not know. But I have the impression that the memories were not to come to the surface until the material had been published very materially off his part, as what he believed to be fiction. That, had I known, I would have been too frightened to write the novel. As it was, I was very frightened anyway. There was something about the novel that frightened me a great deal. Or perhaps I would have just shut off my mouth and told everybody, and somehow interfered with the effectiveness of that book and such other books of mine, Man in the High Castle, which were also based on residual memory. The effectiveness of those novels might have been impaired. I do not even claim there was an intended effectiveness. Perhaps there was none at all. But if there was one, and I repeat the word "it" emphatically, it was almost certainly to stir subliminal memories in readers back to them life, not a conscious life, not an entering consciousness, as in my own case, but to recall to them on a deep and profound, albeit unconscious level, what a police tyranny is like, and how vital it is, now or then, at any time, along any time track in any world to defeat. In March of 1974, the really critical move to Defoe's next work again. In August, 5 months later, they grew successful. It seems to me that in many ways, ideas have a life of their own. They appear to seize on people and make use of it. The idea which seized me 27 years ago and never let go of me is this: any society in which people meddle with other people's business is not a good society, and a state in which the government, quote, knows more about you than you know about yourself, as it is expressed in my novel For My Tear Weepman said, is a state which must be overthrown. It may be a theocracy, a fascist corporate state, or reactionary monopolistic capitalism, or socialistic socialism. That aspect does not matter. And I am saying not merely it can happen here, being the United States. Well, rather, it did happen here, in the United States. I remember, I was one of the secret Christians who fought it, and at least to some extent helped overthrow it. And I am very proud of that, proud of myself and time track 8. When I use the word Christian there, I do not mean Christians as they are now. I mean Christian as it was, say, 2,000 years ago, enemies of a powerful empire. When I saw Star Wars this morning, I thought to myself, it deja vu. There is, unfortunately, for me, the somber intimation which accompanied my pride in the work that I did in that alternate earth. I think that in that previous world, I did not live past March of 1974. In this track here, which I will call track B, we fought a much lighter tyranny, a far stupider one. Or perhaps we had systems, the anterior reprogramming of one or more historical variables came to our rescue. Sometimes I think, and this is of course pure speculation, a happy fantasy of my soul, that because of what we accomplished there, or anyhow attempted to live very bravely, we who were directly involved were allowed to live on here past the terminal point which brought us down in that other worst world. It is a sort of miraculous kindness. It's great to serve to delineate for us, for me at least, some aspect of the proverb. It caused to be a comprehending him after a fact. I think we cannot know what he is, but we can experience his function, and so can ask, what does he resemble? Not what is he, but rather what is he like? First and foremost, he controls the object, process, and event in our space-time world. This is, for us, the primary aspect. although intrinsically he may possess aspects of greater magnitude, but of less applicability to us. I have spoken of myself as a reprogrammed variant, and I have spoken of him as the programmer and reprogrammer. During the short period of time in March of 1974, at the moment in which I was re-synthesized, I was aware perceptually, which say aware is an external way of being present. At that time, I had no idea what I was seeing. It resembled nothing that I had ever heard described. It resembled plasmic energy. It had colors. It moved about. It collected and it dispersed. But what it was, what he was, I am not sure even now. Except I can tell you that he had simulated normal objects and their process so as to copy this, and in such an artful way as to make himself invisible within them. As the Vedantists put it, he is the fire within the flint, the razor within the razor cake. Later research showed me that in terms of group cultural experience, the name Brahman has been given to this omnipresent, infinite entity. I really want you to not. I'm aware that the times I meant claims of having retrieved varied memories of all who are present and who have perceived the agency responsible for arranging that alternation. These fronts can neither be proved nor can they be even made to sound rational in the usual sense of the word. It has taken over 3 years to reach the point where I'm willing to tell anyone but my closest friends about my experience, beginning back at the Vermont equinox of 1974. One of the reasons motivating me to speak about it publicly at last, for ultimately making this claim, is a recent encounter I have undergone, which, by the way, bears as a radiant resemblance to all far Abenson had experienced in my novel The Man at the High Castle with the woman Juliana Frank. Juliana read Abenson's book about a world in which Germany and Japan and Italy. Now this is a little difficult if you haven't read the book, but he wrote a novel in which Germany, Italy, and Japan lost World War II. And he was living in a world in which they had won World War II. Juliana read Abend's book about a world in which the active lost, that she felt she should tell him what she comprehended about the book. In other words, that his novel was true. Now, this spineless scene, The Man in the High Castle, has been the source for a similar scene in my latest story, Fate of Our Father, before the girl Tanya Lee shows up and explains to the protagonist with the actual reality situation, which is to say that much of his world is delusional and purposefully built. In other words, it's a common theme in my writing that a dark-haired girl shows up at the door of the protagonist and tells him that his world is delusional, that there's something false about him. Now, in Man in the High Castle, situation is ironically reversed. The girl that comes to the door tells an author that his book of fiction is true. For several years, I have had the feeling, a growing feeling, that one day a woman who would be a complete stranger to me would contact me and tell me that she had some information to impart to me, and then she would appear at my door, just as Juliana appeared at Wolfgang Abendsen's door. And then forthwith, in the greatest possible way, she would tell me exactly what Juliana told Abenson. And that is, my book, like his, was in a certain real, literal, and physical sense, not fiction, but the truth. Well, this finally happened. I even knew that her hair would be black. I had an actual complete sense of what she would look like and what she would say. And I am speaking of it with systematically read every single novel of mine, is more than 30 novels by one, as well as many of my stories. Did appear she was a total stranger, and she did inform me of this fact, that some of my fictional words were in a little sense true. Now, I had paused in 1974, when my memories of this alternate world came back, that if these memories were authentic, that it was only a matter of time before a cautious, guarded probing by someone would occur, initiated by a person who had read my books that for one reason or another, deduced the actual situation. I mean, knew what the significant information was which the books and stories carried. Now, this woman knew from my novel stories which world I had experienced, which of it meant. What she could not determine until I told her was that in February of 1975, I had passed across into a third alternative present, third track fate, you will call. And this was a garden apart with peace and beauty, a world superior to our and it rising into existence. Three rather than two worlds. The black iron prison world which had been our intermediate world in which oppression and war exist but have to a great degree been cast down. And then a third alternative world which someday, when the correct variable in our path have been reprogrammed, will materialize as a superimposition onto this one, and within which, as we awaken to it, we felt the poles that we have always lived there. The memory of this intermediate one, like that of the black iron prison world, eradicated virtually from our memory. The best that I could really do at this point, after having had this experience as written in novels, is to play the role of ancient prophets and such oracles as the symbol at Delphi, and to talk of a wonderful garden world, much like that once our ancestors are said to have inhabited. In fact, I sometimes imagine exactly that same world restored, as if the false trajectory of our world will eventually be fully corrected, and once more will be where once many thousands of years ago we lived and were happy. During the brief time I walked about in the garden world, I had the strong impression that it was our legitimate home where somehow we had lost. The time I spent there was short, about 6 hours of real elapsed time, but I remember it well. In the novel I wrote with Roger Valadimir, Dea Theory, I describe it toward the end at the point where the curse is lifted from the world by the death and transfiguration of the god of wrath. What was most amazing to me about this park-like world, this tract sea, was the non-Christian element forming the base of it. It was not what my Christian traits had been core at all. Even when it began to phase out, I still saw sky, I saw light in the dark, blue, smooth water, and standing by the edge of the water, a beautiful little woman whom I recognized as Aphrodite. At that point, this other better world had diminished to a mere landscape beyond a bold rectangle doorway. The outline of the doorway pulsed with laser-like light, and it all grew smaller, and was the last and unlast lawn from the dike, the 3 to 5 doorway, devouring itself and in nothingness, feeling off what I had beyond. I have sense that I have the firm impression that this was the next world, not of the Christians, but the archetype of the Greco-Roman world. Something older and more beautiful than that which is my own favorite, with the conjure up her Lord to keep us in a state of dutiful morality and faith. What I saw was very old and very lovely. Skies, the land, and the beautiful woman, and then nothing, with the door had shut, and I was closed off back here. It was with a bitter sense of loss that I saw her go, really, since it all contemplated about her. Aphrodite, I discovered when I looked at my Britannica to see what I could learn about her, was not only the goddess of erotic love and aesthetic beauty, but also the embodiment of the generative force of life itself. Nor was she originally Greek. In the beginning, she had been a systematic deity, later taken over by the Greeks who knew a good thing when they thought. During those treasured hours, what I saw in her was the loveliness that our own religion preached unity, at least by Harrison lacks, an incredible symmetry. The Palantonos harmony with Heraclitus wrote on. The perfect tension and balance of force was in the strung lyre, was in its bonafide stretched strings, which appears perfectly at rest, perfectly at peace. Yet, The strong lyre is without sound, immobile only because the tensions within it are in absolute proportion. This is the quality of the Greek formulation of beauty, perfection that is dynamic within, yet at apparent rest without. Against this Kalikolos harmony, the universe plays out with other aesthetic principles incorporated in the Grecian lyre. The Kalantropos harmony, which is the back and forth oscillation of the strings as they are played. I did not see her like this, and perhaps this, the continual oscillation back and forth, is the deeper, greater rhythm of the universe. Things coming into existence and then passing away, changed rather than static durability. So for a little while I had seen perfect peace, perfect rest, a path we have walked, but a path returning to us as if by means of a long-term oscillation, to be available as our future, in which all lost things shall be restored.